The cold came up through the concrete before dawn. It pressed through the thin blanket under Marcus Reed's back. The sound of trucks on Interstate 90 rolled about him like distant thunder. He opened his eyes and stared at the gray underside of the bridge in Southside Chicago. His breath showed in the air. His stomach hurt. His pride hurt more. A year earlier, nobody would have believed this could happen to him. Neither would Marcus. He pulled himself up and folded the blanket tight. He always folded it tight. It didn't matter where he slept. He kept that habit. Some things felt worth saving. He rubbed his hands together and looked across the small camp under the bridge. A few others still slept. One man coughed hard in his sleep. Another talked quietly to nobody. The air smelled like wet concrete and old cigarettes. Marcus checked his phone. 9% battery. No missed calls. No new messages. Just the same cracked screen that connected him to the world he used to belong to. He slipped the phone into his pocket and stood. His knees popped. 43 years old felt older outside. He didn't know it yet, but this morning would stay with him forever. Marcus walked 3 blocks to a church that served coffee before sunrise. The paper cup warmed his hands. The coffee tasted weak. It still felt like a gift. "Morning, Marcus," said the volunteer. "Morning. You keeping warm? Trying?" She nodded. She already knew the truth. Nobody stayed warm in January. Especially not outside. Marcus sat near a window and watched snow drift across the empty street. He looked at people driving to work. Some wore suits, some wore uniforms. Some looked tired already. He missed being one of them. Not the job. The feeling. The feeling of belonging somewhere. The feeling of having tomorrow planned. The feeling of knowing where you'd sleep that night. A little girl walked past holding her father's hand. Marcus smiled without meaning to. Then he looked away. His daughter Emma had just turned 16. He called her every Thursday, no matter what. Even when he had nothing good to say. Even when the calls hurt afterward. That ritual kept him alive. The volunteer set a muffin beside him. "You need something to eat." Marcus looked up. "Thank you." She smiled. Small kindnesses felt bigger when everything else disappeared. The snow kept falling. And Marcus thought about the Tuesday that broke his life apart. For 20 years he worked at the same manufacturing plant. The building sat near the edge of the city. He started there when he was 23. He learned every machine, every process, every shortcut. People trusted him. Managers trusted him. New workers followed his lead. The pay wasn't amazing, but it paid the mortgage, it paid for groceries, it paid for birthdays and Christmas mornings. It built a life. Then one Tuesday afternoon, everyone got called into the cafeteria. Marcus remembered the smell of machine oil still on his clothes. He remembered nervous whispers. He remembered the company president reading from a paper. Production was moving elsewhere. The plant would close. Hundreds of jobs gone. Just like that. Some people cried. Some cursed. Some sat completely still. Marcus drove home in silence. The radio stayed off. The world outside looked normal. That almost made it worse. He sat in his driveway for 20 minutes before going inside. His wife, Sarah, knew immediately. What happened? Marcus looked at the floor. And everything changed. At first, he believed he'd find something quickly. Most people did. That's what everyone said. You're experienced, you're reliable, you'll land somewhere. Months passed. Nothing landed. Applications disappeared into silence. Interviews felt promising, then never called back. The savings shrank. Bills grew teeth. The mortgage company stopped sounding friendly. Stress settled into every room of the house. Sarah tried to stay hopeful. Marcus tried harder. But fear has a way of moving in. Then came the hospital bill. Sarah slipped on ice outside a grocery store. She broke her ankle badly. Surgery followed. Insurance covered some, not enough. The numbers arrived in white envelopes. Each one felt heavier. Marcus worked temporary jobs,
Warehouse shifts, delivery routes, construction cleanup. Anything. Nothing lasted. Nothing paid enough. The arguments started small, then got bigger, then became normal. One night, Sarah sat at the kitchen table long after midnight.
The house was dark. Only the stove light glowed. Marcus found her crying. She rarely cried. That scared him. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," she said. Marcus sat down slowly. Neither spoke for a long time. The refrigerator hummed. Snow tapped against the window. Everything felt fragile. A year later, Sarah left. Marcus never hated her. Part of him understood. Part of him never stopped hurting. The divorce took what little stability remained. The house sold. Debt swallowed most of the money. Emma moved with Sarah. Marcus rented a small apartment. Then the temporary jobs ended. Then the rent fell behind. Then came the eviction notice. He still remembered holding that paper. The words looked blurry, not because of tears, because his mind refused to accept them. 3 weeks later, he carried everything he owned into a storage unit. A couch, boxes of photographs, old tools, Emma's childhood drawings, a life reduced to numbered rows behind a metal door. The storage unit smelled like dust and cold metal. Marcus stood inside staring at his things. Then he locked the door. That sound echoed in his chest. He slept in his car first. Most people do. They think it's temporary. A week, maybe 2. Then reality arrives. The car became bedroom, closet, office, and shelter. Marcus learned which parking lots stayed quiet, which gas stations allowed long stays, which police officers asked questions, which ones didn't. He showered at a cheap gym, charged his phone at libraries, filled out applications online every day, every single day. He treated unemployment like a job, 8 hours daily. Nothing changed. Weeks became months. Then the transmission failed. The repair cost more than the car. The vehicle that protected him disappeared. The towing company took it away. Marcus watched from the curb. His backpack sat beside him. Everything important now fit inside it. That was the day homelessness became real. Not difficult. Not temporary. Real. The memories still woke him some nights. Or the nights he managed to sleep. The church opened for breakfast. Marcus ate slowly. Then he headed toward the public library. The library became his second home. Warm in winter, cool in summer, quiet all year. The librarian knew his name. Most people there did. "Morning, Marcus," said Mrs. Campbell. "Morning. Computer 3 is open?" She didn't ask questions. That meant more than she knew. Marcus sat down and opened job websites. Warehouse jobs, maintenance jobs, delivery jobs, anything. He updated his resume again. Then again. A young man nearby played a game. Someone else watched videos. Marcus searched. Hours passed. The heating vents hummed overhead. The smell of books drifted through the building. Outside, snow covered the sidewalks. Inside, Marcus chased another chance. At noon, he received an email. His heart jumped. An interview. A maintenance position. Small company. Decent pay. He read the message 3 times. Hope could be dangerous. Still, hope arrived anyway. That afternoon, he walked to the shelter. The building stood between a liquor store and an abandoned warehouse. The line already stretched outside. People stamped their feet against the cold. Some joked. Some stared ahead. Some looked defeated. Marcus understood all 3. Inside, the shelter smelled like bleach and damp clothes. Metal bunk beds filled large rooms. Privacy barely existed. Sleep came hard. Trust came harder. Yet people helped each other sometimes, more than outsiders believed. A man named Terry saved Marcus a place in line. A woman named Denise shared gloves when temperatures dropped. Another man fixed broken backpacks. Nobody had much. They still shared. Survival taught strange lessons. That evening, Marcus sat beside Terry during dinner. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, canned green beans. Not great. Better than nothing. You look happy, Terry said. Marcus laughed. Do I? Little bit. I got an interview. Terry nodded. That's good. Marcus waited. Terry kept eating. You ain't gonna say more? Terry shrugged. I've seen people get hopeful before. The words landed hard. Marcus understood. Hope hurt when it failed. Still, this felt different. At least he wanted it to. That night, Marcus called Emma. Thursday. Always Thursday. She answered after 2 rings. Hey, Dad? Hearing her voice fixed something inside him, even briefly. Hey, kid. They talked about school, friends, basketball games, teachers she liked, teachers she hated.
Normal things. Marcus loved normal things. Normal felt precious now. You okay? Emma asked. The question always came. Marcus always answered the same. Yeah. It wasn't always true. Tonight it wasn't true either. But parents lie sometimes, not to protect themselves, to protect their kids. I have an interview tomorrow, he said. Really? The excitement in her voice made him smile. Really? You're gonna get it. Marcus stared at the shelter wall. Paint peeled near the ceiling. Someone snored nearby. I hope so. You will. She sounded certain. He wished he felt the same. After they hung up, Marcus sat quietly. He saved every voicemail Emma ever left. Every one. Some nights he listened to them, just to remember who he was fighting for. The interview came the next morning. Marcus wore his cleanest clothes. The shirt had been ironed at the shelter. The shoes showed wear, but they were clean. He arrived 30 minutes early. The office sat above an auto repair shop. A woman handed him paperwork. He filled it out carefully. Then came the interview. The manager seemed friendly, asked good questions, smiled often. Marcus felt something return. Confidence. Maybe. Just a little. The interview lasted 40 minutes. At the end, the manager stood. We'll be in touch. Marcus shook his hand. Thank you. He walked outside into bright winter sunlight. For the first time in months, he imagined an apartment, a bed, a refrigerator with food, a future.
3 days later, the rejection email arrived. No explanation, just a polite thank you. Marcus stared at the screen, then closed it. Something inside him went quiet. Not broken, just tired. Very tired. That evening, he skipped dinner. Not because he wasn't hungry, because disappointment felt heavier. He walked through the city instead. Streetlights reflected on dirty snow. Cars splashed slush onto curbs. People hurried home. The smell of pizza drifted from a corner shop. Marcus watched families through restaurant windows, laughing, eating, living. For a moment, shame wrapped around him, heavy and familiar. Then something unexpected happened. A man stepped from the pizza shop. He carried 2 boxes. Hey, Marcus looked up. The man held out 1 box. I bought too much. Marcus hesitated, then accepted it. Thank you. The stranger nodded and walked away. No speech, no pity, just kindness. Marcus sat on a bus bench and opened the box. Pepperoni pizza. Still warm. Steam rose into the cold air. He took 1 bite, then another. The city lights blurred slightly. Not from sadness this time. From gratitude. Small things kept him going. People rarely understood that. The next morning he woke before sunrise. He always did. He performed 20 push-ups beside the shelter wall. Every morning. No matter what. Rain, snow, heat. Didn't matter. The habit reminded him he still controlled something. His body. His choice. His effort. A week passed. Then another. Job applications continued.
Rejections continued. Winter deepened. Chicago winds cut through every layer. The cold reached bone, the kind of cold that followed you indoors, the kind that made breathing hurt. One afternoon, Mrs. Campbell stopped him at the library. Marcus? He turned. She held a small flyer, a community college job fair, local employers, training programs, career services. Marcus almost said no. He almost walked away. He almost let disappointment win. Then he took the flyer. "Thanks," she smiled. "Just go." 3 simple words. Just go. He folded the paper carefully. That night he read it again and again. Something about it felt different. He couldn't explain why. Maybe because he had nothing left to lose. Maybe because someone still believed he should try. Maybe because a tiny part of him still believed it too. Outside, snow fell across Southside Chicago. Inside the shelter, lights dimmed. People settled into beds. Voices faded. Marcus lay awake, staring into darkness. The flyer rested in his backpack. A simple piece of paper. Nothing special. Yet he couldn't stop thinking about it. He had no idea that accepting that flyer would lead him toward the biggest decision of his life. And by morning, the first small shift had already begun. Type Y to continue to the next part of the story. Marcus barely slept that night. The shelter stayed noisy long after lights out. Someone argued near the entrance. A man coughed through most of the night. Metal bed frames squeaked whenever somebody turned over. Still, Marcus kept thinking about the flyer. Just go. Those words stayed with him. By morning, he had made up his mind. He would go. Not because he expected much, not because he suddenly felt hopeful, because staying stuck wasn't working. The next Tuesday, he walked 3 miles through slush and dirty snow to the community college. The building looked familiar. Years earlier, he had taken night classes there, back when life felt stable, back when the future seemed simple. Students moved through the hallways carrying backpacks and coffee cups. They talked about exams and weekend plans. Marcus felt invisible among them, and old, much older than 43. He followed signs toward the job fair. The gymnasium buzzed with voices. Tables lined the walls. Company banners hung overhead. Employers talked with job seekers. Some people wore suits. Others wore work boots. Marcus almost turned around. The old fear showed up fast. The fear of hearing no again. The fear of being judged. The fear of explaining the gaps. The fear of getting his hopes up. Then he remembered something Emma once said. "You always tell me not to quit before trying." Kids remember everything, even when parents wish they didn't. Marcus took a breath, then he walked inside. The first few conversations went nowhere. One company wanted younger workers, another wanted recent certifications, a third barely looked at his resume. The familiar disappointment returned. Then he reached a table near the back wall. No large banner, no crowd. Just a man in his 50s sitting alone. The sign read, Midwest Building Solutions, Maintenance and Facilities Services. The man looked up. "Morning." "Morning. You looking for work?" Marcus laughed softly. "Feels like that's all I've done lately." The man smiled. "I'm Frank." "Marcus." Frank pointed toward an empty chair. "Sit down." Marcus sat. They talked. Not interviewed. Talked. About work, machines, repairs, building systems, old equipment, new equipment. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Frank listened more than he spoke. That felt unusual. Most employers talked. Frank listened. Finally, he leaned back. "You know your stuff." Marcus shrugged. "I've been around a while." "I can tell." Frank looked at the resume again, then at Marcus. "What happened here?" His finger rested on the employment gap. The question always came. Usually it ended conversations. Marcus considered giving the polished answer, the safe answer. Instead, he told the truth, the whole truth. The plant closure, the hospital bills, the divorce, the car, the shelter, everything. Frank listened quietly. When Marcus finished, neither spoke for a few seconds. The gym noise filled the silence. Then Frank nodded. "Tough road." Marcus looked down. "Yeah." Frank folded the resume. "You know what I see?" Marcus waited. "I see somebody who kept getting up." Marcus didn't answer. Because nobody had said that before. Not once. Most people saw failure. Frank saw persistence. That mattered. More than Marcus expected. Frank handed him a business card. "Come by Thursday morning." Marcus stared. "What for?" "Let's talk more." His heart sped up. "Okay." Frank stood. "We'll see where it goes." Marcus left the college carrying something unfamiliar. Possibility. The cold didn't seem quite as sharp. The city didn't seem quite as gray.
Nothing had changed, yet something had. The next 2 days felt endless. Marcus arrived Thursday nearly an hour early. The company office sat beside a warehouse. Pickup trucks filled the parking lot. Employees moved equipment through loading doors. Real work. The sight alone lifted his spirits. Frank met him inside, introduced him to supervisors, showed him around, asked more questions. Then something unexpected happened. Frank walked him into a small office, closed the door, and slid paperwork across the desk. Marcus stared at it. Employment forms. His hands froze. Frank smiled. "You interested?" Marcus looked up. "What?" "The job." Marcus blinked twice. The words barely felt real. "You're hiring me?" Frank nodded. "If you want it." For several seconds, Marcus couldn't speak. He had imagined this moment for months. Now that it arrived, his mind couldn't catch up. "You sure?" Frank laughed. "I wouldn't offer Evelise." Marcus felt his throat tighten. His eyes burned. He looked away quickly.
Frank pretended not to notice. That kindness meant everything. "When do I start?" Marcus asked. "Monday." Marcus signed every form. His signature shook. When he walked outside, sunlight reflected off fresh snow. Cars passed, people worked, the city kept moving. Yet Marcus stood completely still. He had a job, a real job, not temporary, not 1 week, not 1 shift, a job. He pulled out his phone. 7% battery. Enough. He called Emma. She answered immediately. "Dad, I got it." A pause, then a scream, a loud, happy scream. People turned to look. Marcus didn't care. "You got it?" "I got it." She laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Marcus started crying too. Neither mentioned it. Neither needed to. That evening felt different. The shelter looked the same. The beds looked the same. The food looked the same. Yet everything felt lighter. Terry noticed immediately. "You got news." Marcus grinned. "I got hired." Terry smiled. A real smile. About time. People congratulated him. A few shook his hand. Others simply nodded. Everyone understood what that victory meant, because every person there wanted the same thing. A chance. Just one chance. Monday arrived. Marcus woke before sunrise, completed his push-ups, shaved carefully, straightened his shirt, then walked toward work. The first day felt strange. His body remembered routines his mind had forgotten. Clocking in, checking assignments, reviewing equipment, talking with coworkers, being needed, being useful. The feeling hit harder than expected. For months, he had felt discarded. Now people depended on him again. That mattered, more than money. The money mattered too, of course it did, but dignity mattered just as much. The first weeks passed quickly. Marcus worked hard, showed up early, stayed late, learned systems, fixed problems, asked questions. Frank noticed. Everyone noticed. One afternoon, a coworker named Kevin laughed. "You work like somebody's chasing you." Marcus smiled. "Feels like they are." Kevin didn't understand, but Marcus did. Homelessness chased people long after they escaped it. Fear stayed close. Every paycheck still felt fragile. Every success still felt temporary. The first paycheck arrived on a Friday. Marcus stared at the amount. It wasn't huge, but it was real. Earned. His. He cashed it immediately, then bought himself something special. A cheeseburger, fries, and a milkshake. Nothing fancy, just normal. The restaurant smelled like grilled onions and fresh bread. Marcus sat by the window. A family laughed nearby. Teenagers crowded another booth. The world looked ordinary. For the first time in a very long time, Marcus felt ordinary too. That meal tasted better than any expensive dinner he could remember, because he had earned it, because it represented movement, because it proved the climb had started. Yet the climb wasn't easy, not even close. The shelter still waited every night. The bunk bed remained, the noise remained, the uncertainty remained. Marcus saved every dollar possible. He needed an apartment, security deposit, first month's rent, utilities, furniture. Life cost money, more than most people realized. Some nights, exhaustion nearly overwhelmed him. Work all day, applications for housing at night, paperwork, Waiting lists, phone calls, forms, endless forms. The system moved slowly, much slower than survival. One afternoon, he found a small apartment. Nothing fancy. One bedroom, old building, south side. Affordable. At least, almost affordable. Marcus filled out the application, then waited. Days passed. No answer. Another week passed. Still nothing. The silence felt familiar. Too familiar. Fear returned. What if they rejected him? What if the shelter remained home? What if this wasn't enough? Then another setback hit. His storage unit bill increased. Unexpected fees, past balances, complications. Marcus spent an entire evening sitting inside the unit staring at his belongings. Dust floated through thin sunlight. The old couch remained. The photo boxes remained. Emma's drawings remained. Pieces of another life. He wondered if he had waited too long, if rebuilding everything was impossible. The thought lingered longer than usual, long enough to scare him. Because hopelessness sounded reasonable when spoken quietly. That's how it sneaks in. Not loudly, quietly. The next morning, Frank found him distracted. "You okay?" Marcus hesitated, then told him. The apartment uncertainty, the storage unit stress, the fear.
Frank listened, then nodded. "Keep moving." Marcus laughed. "That's your advice?" "Yep. That's it?" Frank smiled. "That's what got you here." Marcus thought about that all day. Keep moving. Simple words. Simple truths often matter most. Weeks later, something happened nobody expected. A supervisor quit unexpectedly. The company needed someone dependable, someone experienced, someone trusted. Frank called Marcus into his office, the same office where everything started. Marcus sat down. Frank folded his hands. "We need help." Marcus waited. Frank smiled. "And I think you're the guy." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. The opportunity sounded big, maybe bigger than he was ready for. Yet something else sat beneath the fear. Confidence. Growing slowly, like a muscle rebuilding itself. The conversation that followed would change the direction of his life again, but it would also force him to make the hardest choice since becoming homeless. And the answer wasn't as obvious as it seemed. Marcus drove home from work that evening with the radio off. The company truck hummed beneath him. Chicago traffic crawled through the streets. Snow had finally started melting. Dirty piles sat along curbs. Winter was losing its grip. Marcus should have felt excited. Instead, he felt nervous. The promotion meant more money, more responsibility, more pressure. After everything he had survived, pressure still scared him. Not because he doubted his skills.
Because he knew what it felt like to lose everything. That kind of memory never fully leaves. It waits quietly, then shows up when life starts improving. The next morning, Frank explained the position. Team supervisor. Better pay, benefits, more hours, a future. Marcus listened carefully. The offer sounded almost too good. Then Frank said something unexpected. "You don't have to answer today." Marcus looked up. "What if I mess it up?" Frank laughed. "You think everybody else knows what they're doing?" Marcus smiled despite himself. Frank leaned back. "You've been carrying bigger things than this." The truth of those words hit hard. Marcus thought about sleeping under bridges, standing in shelter lines, walking miles through snow, trying to explain employment gaps, calling Emma while pretending everything was okay. Compared to those things, this job felt manageable. By the end of the meeting, he accepted. The promotion became official the following week. His paycheck increased, not dramatically. Enough. Enough to move forward faster. Enough to keep building. A few days later, his phone rang during lunch. Unknown number. Marcus answered anyway. "Hello? Mr. Reed?" "Yes? This is Angela from South Michigan Apartments." Marcus sat up straight. His heart started racing. "We reviewed your application." He waited. Every muscle tightened. "We'd like to offer you the apartment." Marcus closed his eyes. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. The cafeteria noise faded. Everything faded. Only those words remained. "Offer you the apartment." After months of uncertainty, after a year of instability, after countless rejections, a door had finally opened. "Mr. Reed?" He realized she was still talking. "Sorry?" He laughed softly. "Sorry." Angela laughed too.
That's okay. Marcus looked down at the table. A smile spread across his face. A real one. The kind that starts somewhere deep. I'd love to take it. That evening, he walked into the shelter carrying paperwork. Terry immediately noticed. You got that look again. Marcus nodded. I got an apartment. For a second, Terry simply stared. Then he stood and pulled Marcus into a hug. Neither man said much. Neither needed to. People nearby heard the news. Several congratulated him. One woman cried. Another man shook his hand. The shelter community celebrated every escape, because each success reminded everyone else that escape remained possible. A week later, Marcus unlocked the apartment door. The room looked small. The carpet looked old. The kitchen looked outdated. To Marcus, it looked beautiful. Sunlight spilled through the windows. Dust floated in the air. The place smelled slightly like fresh paint. Marcus stepped inside, then stopped. Silence. Real silence. No shelter noise. No traffic overhead. No strangers nearby. Just silence. He stood there for nearly 5 minutes, listening, smiling, trying to believe it. That night he slept on an air mattress. The apartment contained almost nothing.
One lamp, a folding chair, a few dishes, the air mattress. That was enough. It felt like a palace. Marcus woke up around 3 in the morning. Not because of noise, because there wasn't any. The quiet felt unfamiliar. He stared at the ceiling, then laughed softly. For the first time in over a year, he was home. Months passed. Slowly, steadily. Marcus kept working, kept saving, kept rebuilding. The apartment gained furniture. A couch arrived, then a dining table, then shelves. Photos returned from storage. Emma's childhood drawings went on the wall. Little by little, the apartment became a home. One Saturday, he finally emptied the storage unit. The last box sat near the entrance. Marcus looked around the nearly empty space. He remembered the day he locked everything away. The hopelessness, the fear, the shame. He remembered believing life might never improve. Now he stood there, holding the final box. The same man, a different life. The storage unit manager walked by. All done? Marcus smiled. Yeah. The manager nodded. Good. Marcus looked back one last time, then closed the door. This time the sound felt different. Not loss, closure. Then he walked away. Summer arrived. Chicago parks filled with people. Street festivals returned. The city felt alive. One Saturday, Emma visited. Marcus waited outside the apartment building. Nervous. Excited. She stepped out of Sarah's car and ran toward him. Marcus hugged her tightly. For a moment, neither let go. Teenagers usually hate long hugs. Not this one. Not today. Emma spent the weekend there. They cooked dinner together, watched movies, talked late into the night. Normal things. Beautiful things. At one point, Emma looked around the apartment. You did it. Marcus smiled. I guess I did. She shook her head. No. Her eyes filled with tears. You really did. Marcus looked away. The emotion felt too big, too heavy, too good. That night, after Emma fell asleep on the couch, Marcus sat alone by the window. City lights glowed outside. Cars moved through the darkness. He thought about every moment that almost broke him. The layoffs, the eviction, the shelter, the rejection emails, the loneliness, the endless uncertainty. He had survived all of it. Not perfectly, not gracefully, just stubbornly. Sometimes survival looks ordinary. Sometimes it looks like getting up one more morning. Sometimes it looks like filling out one more application. Sometimes it looks like showing up when nobody expects anything from you. Marcus understood that now. 2 years after accepting the job, another opportunity arrived. Frank announced retirement. The news surprised everyone, especially Marcus. The company had grown, the team respected him, clients trusted him, yet he never imagined what came next.
Frank called him into the office one final time, the familiar office, the familiar desk, the place where everything changed. Frank smiled. "I recommended you." Marcus frowned. "For what?"
"My position." Marcus stared. The words didn't register immediately. Frank continued. "The owners agree." The room went silent. Marcus remembered sitting across from Frank years earlier, homeless, scared, desperate. Now he sat in the same chair hearing something unimaginable. He would become operations manager. The position came with better pay, leadership responsibilities, a future he never dared imagine. Marcus accepted, not because he felt fearless, because he finally understood something. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's movement despite fear. That lesson had rebuilt his life. Years continued passing. Marcus bought a small home, nothing extravagant, a modest brick house, a front yard, a porch, a place that belonged to him. Emma graduated high school, then college. Marcus attended every milestone, every ceremony, every achievement. He never missed another one. One afternoon, he stood in his bathroom preparing for work. Nothing special about the day, nothing dramatic, just another morning. He looked into the mirror, then stopped. For a long moment, he stared. The face looking back appeared older, more lines, more gray hair. But something had returned, something he hadn't seen in years. Himself. Not the homeless man, not the unemployed man, not the broken man, just Marcus. A man who survived, a man who rebuilt, a man who kept going. His eyes filled with tears, unexpectedly, quietly, because success didn't feel like winning. Success felt like recognition.
Like finding someone you thought was gone forever. He smiled at the reflection, then headed to work. That evening, Marcus drove past the bridge where he once slept. Traffic slowed nearby. The bridge looked smaller now, almost ordinary. Yet he remembered everything. The cold concrete, the hunger, the fear, the cracked phone, the endless uncertainty. A younger version of himself still existed there somehow, frozen in memory. Marcus parked nearby and walked beneath the bridge. The city sounded the same. Trucks still rolled overhead. Wind still pushed through the supports. A few people sheltered there now, just as he once had. Marcus spoke with them for a while. No speeches, no lectures, just conversation. One man looked exhausted. Another looked hopeless. Marcus understood both feelings. Before leaving, he handed one man a business card, the same way Frank once handed him one. The gesture felt familiar, important. The man looked down at it. "Why are you helping me?" Marcus smiled, because he finally knew the answer. Someone helped me. Then he walked away. The sun lowered across Chicago. Golden light touched buildings. People hurried home from work. Families gathered for dinner. The city moved forward. Marcus moved with it. Not ahead of anyone, not behind anyone. Just part of it again. Exactly where he wanted to be. Years earlier, he had believed homelessness stole everything. It stole much, but it didn't steal his ability to choose. It didn't steal his work ethic.
It didn't steal his dignity. It didn't steal the small, stubborn part of him that refused to quit. That part saved him. Not overnight, not through luck, not through magic. One choice at a time. One morning at a time. One step at a time. The truth is that every person carries seasons nobody else fully sees. Some seasons look successful from the outside, while hurting deeply inside. Others look hopeless from the outside, while strength quietly grows underneath. People often judge a life by a moment. Real life is bigger than a moment. Real life is thousands of choices made when nobody is watching. The people who helped Marcus never fixed his life for him. They gave him something just as important, a chance, a little kindness, a little belief. Sometimes that is enough to help someone stand back up. Sometimes one person remembering your name can keep you moving another day. Sometimes one conversation can change everything. Every person falls in some way, maybe not into homelessness, maybe into grief,
failure, shame, fear, loneliness. The details change. The feeling doesn't. Most people know what it feels like to stare at the ceiling at night and wonder if things will ever get better. Most people know what it feels like to carry hope so carefully because they are afraid it might break. The people who keep going are not always the strongest. Often they are simply the ones who decide to take one more step when the next step is all they can manage.
If Marcus learned anything, it was this: your worst chapter is not your whole story. The version of you that feels lost today may be building the strength that saves you tomorrow. And maybe the most important thing a person can do is refuse to quit on themselves before life has finished showing what is still possible. What would change in your life if you believed that one more step could matter? The people who keep walking often reach places they once thought existed only in dreams.